Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into, one of those texts that can really make your head spin,
Yeah.
but also hopefully, gives you one of those aha moments
Oh, yeah.
that changes how you see the world.
Absolutely.
Especially, for you, dear listeners, you're prepping for the UPSC, especially with a focus on international relations.
Yes.
Get ready to see how ancient philosophy can have surprisingly modern applications.
That's right. We're tackling Plato's Republic.
Hmm.
Not exactly light reading, but a foundational text when it comes to understanding concepts like justice,
Right.
the ideal state, and how individuals fit into the bigger picture.
So we've got this UPSC aspirant gearing up for the world of diplomacy and international relations. How does Plato, writing centuries ago in ancient Greece, become like their secret weapon?
It's all about the framework that Plato provides.
Okay.
He grapples with these big, enduring questions that are still relevant today.
Yeah.
What is justice?
Right.
What makes a good society?
Right.
And those are questions any diplomat, anyone dealing with international relations, is going to be wrestling with throughout their career.
Okay. So let's unpack this Republic a little bit.
Right.
It's not a straightforward treatise or anything.
Right.
Plato uses dialogue, a
Dialogue.
conversation,
Yes.
to explore these ideas. Mostly, it's Socrates,
Yeah.
Plato's teacher, kind of leading the charge.
Right.
So today, we're focusing on this specific section,
Okay.
where Socrates goes head-to-head with some pretty sharp characters to try to nail down what is justice.
Yeah. What's fascinating is how Plato uses this dialogue format to kind of pick apart conventional wisdom. He starts with Cephalus,
Okay.
a well-respected elderly Athenian.
Yeah.
He represents that traditional view of justice. Cephalus says justice is all about being honest, being truthful, paying your debts.
Seems simple enough, right?
Right, exactly.
I bet Socrates doesn't let him off that easy.
Of course not. Socrates, being Socrates, he throws in a curveball. Imagine, he says, you've borrowed a weapon from a friend, but now that friend is enraged.
Oh.
Maybe not thinking clearly. Is it really just to return that weapon, knowing they might harm themselves or others?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's like suddenly it's not so black and white anymore.
Right.
What seems just in one situation, gets murky in another.
Exactly.
I see where this is going. Plato's making us think.
Exactly. And that's just the first jab. Cephalus' son, Polemarchus, kind of jumps into the conversation,
Okay.
trying to refine this definition. He says justice is about giving everyone what they're due. And for him, that means doing good to your friends and harm to your enemies.
Okay.
Now, this idea was really, deeply ingrained in ancient Greek culture.
He has that eye for an eye kind of vibe.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm guessing Socrates has a problem with this definition too.
He does. He points out that it's not always easy to tell who your true friends and enemies are.
Right.
People can deceive you.
Yeah.
Plus, even actions that are meant for good can kind of backfire and cause harm.
It's like he's saying intentions aren't enough.
Right.
You have to consider the consequences too.
Absolutely.
I can see how this would be relevant for, someone navigating the complexities of international relations.
Absolutely. And Socrates takes it a step further.
Okay.
He argues that a truly just person wouldn't harm anyone, friend or enemy. Harming someone he believes actually makes them more unjust.
Okay.
It's a radical idea that forces us to rethink the whole notion of retribution.
So we've got honesty, giving people their due, not harming anyone.
Yeah.
Where does Plato take us next in this quest to define justice?
Well, just when you think things can't get any more challenging, enter Thrasymachus.
Oh, boy.
He's a sophist,
Okay.
known for his sharp wit and challenging conventional wisdom.
Right.
Thrasymachus kind of bursts into the conversation and just declares that justice is nothing more than the advantage of the stronger. Basically, those in power make the rules to benefit themselves, and the weak just have to follow along.
That's a pretty cynical take. It's like might makes right.
Right.
And honestly, you can see how that idea, plays out in the real world,
Yeah.
even in international relations.
It's a view that's resonated throughout history for sure.
Yeah.
But Socrates pushes back on this too.
Okay.
He points out that even rulers can make mistakes.
Right.
They can pass laws that end up hurting their own interests. He compares a true ruler to a skilled professional,
Okay.
like a doctor or a ship captain.
Right.
They should be acting in the best interests of those they govern.
Not just themselves.
Not just themselves, exactly.
Okay. So we've got three very different perspectives on justice already.
We do.
But Plato's not done yet, is he?
He is not.
He throws in two more challengers, Glaucon and Etemontus. Fun fact, they were his own brothers in real life.
They were.
Okay.
Glaucon and Adeimantus add another layer of complexity to this debate.
Yeah.
They suggest that most people are only just because they're afraid of getting caught or punished. If they could get away with being unjust, they totally would.
It's like they're saying justice is just a social construct.
Yeah.
Something we do out of, self-preservation.
Right.
Not because we actually, truly believe in it.
That's the core of their argument.
Okay.
And to illustrate their point, they bring up the Ring of Gyges,
Okay.
a famous thought experiment.
Okay.
Imagine a shepherd who finds a ring that makes him invisible.
Oh, wow.
He can now do whatever he wants without facing any consequences.
Right.
What would he do? Glaucon and Adeimantus believe he would act unjustly.
Okay.
Because, deep down, that's what humans are driven to do.
This is getting deep. So how does Socrates respond to this idea that justice is, just a facade?
Well, this is where Socrates shifts gears and takes a more constructive approach.
Okay.
He proposes that to understand justice in individuals,
Okay.
we need to first understand it on a larger scale. He says we need to look at justice in the state.
So he's saying there's a connection between individual morality and the kind of society that we live in.
Exactly. Socrates believes that by understanding how a just state functions,
Okay.
we can gain insights into the nature of justice itself.
Mm-hmm.
He starts by looking at how states originate.
Okay.
Humans, he says, aren't self-sufficient. We
Yeah.
need each other to survive.
It takes a village. Right.
It does.
We specialize in different skills and tasks, and then we cooperate to meet everyone's needs.
Precisely. And this leads Socrates to his idea of specialization and harmony.
Okay.
He believes that individuals are naturally suited to different roles.
Right.
And when everyone focuses on what they do best,
Yeah.
it creates this division of labor that benefits the whole society.
It's like a well-oiled machine. Every
Uh.
part has its purpose. And when all the parts work together smoothly,
Yes.
the machine thrives.
Perfect analogy.
Okay.
This aligns with Plato's concept of an ideal state. Everyone performs their designated role.
Right.
And contributes to the overall good. He identifies three main classes in his ideal society: rulers,
Okay.
warriors,
Okay.
and producers.
Okay. So rulers to govern, warriors to protect,
Yeah.
and producers to, produce the goods and services everybody needs.
Right.
It sounds pretty hierarchical,
It is.
doesn't it? It's a lot like, how ancient Greek society was structured.
It is hierarchical.
Yeah.
But remember, Plato isn't advocating for any particular form of government here.
Okay.
He's more interested in the principles of justice that should guide any state,
Okay.
regardless of its specific political structure.
Okay. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. So Plato is trying to show us that justice isn't just about, individual actions.
Right. It's
It's about the structure and function of society as a whole. And I'm guessing this has implications for how we think about international relations as well.
It does.
But I suppose we'll have to wait for the next segment to kind of dive into that.
You got it. There's much more to uncover in Plato's Republic.
Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back to explore how these ideas connect to the world of international relations. And we'll offer some insights for our UPSC aspirant who's on the path to becoming a top-notch diplomat.
Absolutely.
And hey, if you're enjoying this deep dive, hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It helps others discover the show and join the conversation.
Please do.
We'll be back in a flash.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Plato's Republic. Before the break, we were exploring Socrates' idea that to understand justice in the individual, we first need to understand justice in the state.
Right. And he was building this intriguing analogy between the individual soul and the ideal state, arguing that both need harmony and balance to function at their best.
Exactly. Socrates identifies three parts of the human soul: reason, spirit, and appetite. Just like the three classes in his ideal state, rulers, warriors, and producers, each part of the soul has its specific function.
So let's unpack these parts of the soul a little bit.
Yeah.
We have reason, which I'm guessing is like the wise ruler within us,
Yes.
guiding our actions with logic and understanding.
Right.
Then there's spirit, which sounds like the courageous warrior, giving us the drive and determination to overcome challenges.
Right.
And finally, appetite, which I suppose represents our basic desires and cravings
Yeah.
for things like food, pleasure, and comfort.
You nailed it. Now, Socrates argues that a just individual is one whose soul is in harmony, with reason ruling over spirit and appetite.
Okay.
Just like in the ideal state, each part of the soul must perform its function without overstepping its boundaries.
Okay. So if our appetites are in control, we're basically just going to be chasing fleeting pleasures and end up well, a bit of a mess.
Hmm.
Kind of like a state ruled by, the whims of the masses with no clear direction or purpose.
That's the idea.
Right.
And if spirit dominates, we become impulsive,
Hmm.
driven by anger or ambition, without the wisdom of reason to guide our actions.
Okay.
This could be like a state ruled by a military junta.
Right.
Strong on force, but lacking in wise leadership.
Right. It's fascinating how he connects these, internal struggles within the individual to the challenges of governing a state. So he's saying that individual morality and political order are two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really relevant for our listener who's studying international relations.
Mhm.
Think about the challenges of creating a just world order. We have all these different nations,
Right.
each with its own interests and motivations, often vying for power and resources.
It's like a global version of Plato's three parts of the soul, isn't it?
Yes.
You have nations driven by economic appetites, others driven by military might, and some that strive to lead with wisdom and diplomacy.
Precisely. And just as Socrates argues for the importance of reason ruling over spirit and appetite within the individual, we might ask, what role should reason and ethical principles play in guiding international relations?
Right.
How can we create a system where nations cooperate based on mutual understanding and respect, rather than giving in to power struggles and conflict?
Wow. It's like Plato's Republic provides a framework for thinking about global challenges, even though he was writing about ancient Greece over 2,000 years ago.
That's the beauty of great philosophical works. They grapple with these timeless questions about human nature, justice, and how we organize ourselves. These are ideas that transcend specific historical contexts.
Okay. So we've explored how Plato connects individual justice to the idea of a just state. But there's still one big question we haven't fully addressed.
Yeah.
Why be just?
Yes.
Why should anyone strive to live a virtuous life?
Yeah.
Especially if it seems like you can get away with being unjust.
Oh, yes. That's the heart of the matter. Remember Glaucon and Adeimantus's challenge with the ring of gauges?
Right.
They argued that most people would choose injustice if they could act without consequence.
Right.
For Socrates has to show that justice is intrinsically good,
Okay.
not just something we do to avoid punishment or gain social approval.
So how does he make that case? I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Well, Socrates argues that a just soul is a healthy soul, one that's in balance and functioning as it should. He compares a just soul to a well-tuned instrument,
Okay.
producing beautiful music, while an unjust soul is like an instrument out of tune, producing only discordant sounds.
I love that analogy. It's like he's saying that being just brings a sense of inner peace and fulfillment,
Yes.
while being unjust leads to internal conflict and chaos.
Exactly. And he goes even further. He argues that a just person is ultimately happier than an unjust person,
Okay.
even if the unjust person appears to be outwardly successful. True happiness, he says, comes from living in accordance with virtue,
Right.
not from chasing fleeting pleasures or material gain.
So it's about aligning your actions with your values,
Yes.
even when it's tough, or it doesn't seem like it'll pay off right away.
Exactly.
It's kind of like, when you're a diplomat and you have to stick to your principles, even when you're facing pressure to compromise or take the easy way out.
Precisely. Plato's ideas challenge us to think about the long-term consequences of our choices,
Right.
both as individuals and on a global scale. He's asking, what kind of world do we want to create? And what role does justice play in achieving that vision?
These are big questions.
They are.
And I'm sure our listener, as a future diplomat, will be wrestling with them throughout their career.
Absolutely. And Plato's Republic, while ancient, offers a timeless framework for approaching those questions.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. But I can already see how these ideas from Plato can be so helpful for someone navigating the complex world of international relations.
Right.
But there's still more to uncover. Right?
Oh, definitely. We've only just scratched the surface of what Plato has to offer.
Okay.
And in our final segment, we'll tie all of this together and give our listeners some concrete takeaways to apply to their studies and their future career in diplomacy.
Sounds good. Don't miss the final part of our deep dive into Plato's Republic. We'll be right back after a short break. And hey, if you're finding this deep dive insightful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends. The more the merrier. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been unpacking Plato's Republic. A text that's, over 2,000 years old, but still feels surprisingly relevant
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't
to
it?
the challenges that we face today.
It really is. It's a testament to Plato's genius that his ideas continue to resonate across centuries and cultures.
Right.
And for our listener who's preparing for the UPSC, focusing on international relations, the Republic offers a treasure trove of insights.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So let's bring it all home.
Yeah.
We've explored how Plato defines justice, both on the individual level and in the context of the state. We even touched on how these ideas might apply to the international stage.
Right. And for someone who's going to be dealing with diplomacy and international relations, Plato's Republic provides a framework for thinking about some of the most fundamental challenges in the field.
Okay, so, give us the rundown. How can our future diplomat actually use these ideas from Plato? What are the concrete takeaways?
Well, let's start with Plato's concept of the ideal state.
Okay.
He argues that a just state is one where everyone fulfills their natural role, contributing to the overall good. Now, what if we apply that to the global level? What would a just world order look like?
Right.
Would it involve some kind of international division of labor where different nations specialize in what they do best?
That's a big question. It makes me think about the different roles nations play on the world stage today. Some are economic powerhouses,
Right.
others have powerful militaries, and some are known for their diplomacy and peacekeeping efforts.
Exactly. And just as Plato emphasized the importance of reason guiding the state, we might ask, what role should diplomacy and international law play in resolving conflicts and promoting cooperation between nations?
Right.
How do we move away from a system where might makes right and towards a system based on shared values and mutual respect?
It's like we need a global ruler in the Platonic sense, like a guiding force.
Yes.
That prioritizes reason and justice over self-interest and, brute force.
And that's where organizations like the United Nations come in.
Right.
While they may not perfectly embody Plato's ideal state, they represent an attempt to create a framework for international cooperation,
Right.
a way for nations to work together based on shared principles and goals.
It makes you realize that building a just world order isn't like a one-time event. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
It's like a constant striving for balance and harmony on a global scale, kind of like how individuals have to work on, cultivating a just soul.
That's a great way to put it. And just as Socrates argues that justice ultimately leads to happiness for the individual, we might ask, can a just world order lead to greater peace and prosperity for all nations?
That's a hopeful thought. But, let's be real. The world of international relations is messy. It's full of power struggles, competing interests, conflicting ideologies. How do Plato's ideas hold up in such a, complex environment? It feels like his republic presents an idealized vision, like a blueprint for how things should be, but the real world rarely fits into those neat categories.
You're right. It's important to remember that Plato is presenting an ideal. But even if we don't take his ideas literally, the Republic gives us valuable tools for thinking about justice, power, and how we organize ourselves,
Right.
both individually and collectively. It encourages us to ask those tough questions and to grapple with those complex challenges.
It's almost like a mental workout for anyone who's going to be dealing with international relations.
Exactly. And for our listener who's prepping for the UPSC, this kind of critical thinking is essential. They're going to be dealing with real-world dilemmas, navigating complex negotiations, and trying to find solutions that promote peace and stability.
So it's not just about, memorizing facts and figures. It's about developing a deep understanding of the underlying principles
Right.
that shape international relations, the timeless questions that philosophers like Plato were wrestling with centuries ago.
Precisely. And even though the world has changed drastically since Plato's time, the Republic still offers a framework for understanding those underlying principles.
Right.
It helps us think about the kind of world we want to create and the role that justice plays in achieving that vision.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of, what Plato has to offer. But hopefully our listener has gained some valuable insights that they can carry with them on their journey to becoming a skilled diplomat.
I agree. It's always exciting to see how ancient wisdom can illuminate modern challenges.
And that wraps up our exploration of Plato's Republic. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive and share this episode with your friends. And if you have any thoughts on how Plato's ideas might apply to international relations today, we'd love to hear them. Leave us a comment and, let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, happy pondering.